Hey everyone, welcome to Pop Crime TV's Lunchtime Live. I'm very excited for my guest today, Josh Ritter. Welcome. You all know Josh from Courtroom Confidential. I hope you have to check out his show. It's so informative and Josh is very entertaining. Welcome, Josh.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, we met at CrimeCon briefly. I was having a lot of fun, okay? I was a mom out on the town, so so I was probably close talking and being really annoying, but it's clear that you forgive me. I hope because you're here.
Absolutely. No, that
Okay,
was a
good.
fun time, CrimeCon. That was my first time. Had you been there before? I
No,
forget. That was
never,
my first
never.
time there, and I gotta say, I I was thoroughly impressed. It was, first of all, much bigger. The
Mhm.
atmosphere was incredible. It was absolutely wild. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I honestly was going to bail. Last minute, I was like, I don't want to go. I'm going alone. I don't know anyone. And
Yeah.
it's just, whatever. And then when I got there, I was like, I cannot see myself ever missing one of these ever
Yeah,
again. It
no.
was so
I
fun.
felt the same way. I
Yeah.
was I was like I said, I was texting my wife and I'm like, we're going to this thing next year because I went to just kind of check it out.
Yeah.
Is this something we want to be more a part of?
Hmm.
We're thinking about, do we want to do a booth or something like that? And then within minutes of being there, I was like, I'm sold on this whole thing. It was just a
Yeah.
fun kind of fan centric environment, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I got to meet
Yeah.
you.
Exactly. Exactly. Hi, Sue. I'm just pinning some of the members here. Thank you for joining us today. And like for me, I feel like sometimes I tell this to my husband, I have no friends anymore because I feel like my friends, they really loved what I was doing with entertainment and they wanted to hear about that. And unfortunately, nobody wants to hear about trials and murder. And they're kind of like, Lauren, just shut up already. So I'm kind of like, there's nobody that I care to go out and talk to and hang out with anymore. So I'm kind of like, CrimeCon was such a great place for me. So hey,
Yeah.
Dizzy. And guys, I also have a really bad cold. I'm getting over some nasty eye shit, so I'm very sorry if I'm a hot mess. But I'm bringing Josh on because again, I mentioned I love his insight, and I have some questions for you, Josh.
Yeah.
About the Karen Reed arguments on Friday, and then of course YSL, and then we're going to go into a case that I believe a lot of you guys in this chat are not familiar with, but I've been kind of pushing this on Josh as I've covered it on the Outlier. But first of all, let's start with Reed. I just want to know, are you in the camp of Judge Canoni should dismiss two of the three charges, but she won't? Or are you in the camp that she's not going to dismiss them because she doesn't have to?
Um, I think both are actually kind of true. I don't think she's going to dismiss them, because I don't think that she has to from a legal perspective. I
Right.
think that she probably, well, maybe this is me giving a hedged answer, but I think the Commonwealth should dismiss them. I think they have the power to do it.
Yeah.
It's outside of her hands to some extent. If she were to do it, I think it would create all sort of appealable problems that the Commonwealth could perhaps make an appeal on. It would create a mess and a bad precedent. And quite frankly, I don't see her doing it for a number of reasons, including the idea of what kind of precedent would it set. But if the Commonwealth were to do it, I don't think it would present any of those problems whatsoever. And I think they should do it. And I think they should do it because they just did a 8-week long mock trial, essentially, that told them you don't have this case. You've
Yeah.
got 12 people, and if these jurors are to be believed, and I don't have any reason to doubt it. I mean, we don't really have anybody who's done sworn testimony or anything,
Hmm.
but I can't imagine that the defense isn't being accurate and that these people are not accurately saying what was taking place in that deliberation room. So
Right.
assuming all that's true, then you just heard from 12 people who don't buy that this was second degree murder. Okay, learn from that and go on with your case if you want to. That might be the stronger count anyway. So
Right.
that's where I think it's just it would make it easier on the Commonwealth. It would make the case cleaner. And it's probably just the right thing to do after you've already heard from 12 people to begin with.
Right. That I guess was my thinking, where if what the Commonwealth is saying also, that the jury was 9-3 guilty on manslaughter,
Yeah.
and they want a conviction here, wouldn't that be the thing to do? Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get rid of the other two charges and then focus on this. That's where I'm like, are they actually are they thinking straight, or are they being stubborn like a toddler? That's kind of where my head is at.
I think, I mean, if the outside Twitter world is any reflection of what's going on inside of that office, I think that a lot of people have become really embroiled in this case and started to take it personally. And there's no reason to believe that that doesn't extend to the prosecutor's office. And it might be that they're just trying to make a point, and they don't want to back away from this. The curious thing to me is, having been a prosecutor, I know that there are settlement negotiations taking place behind the scenes. Now, we legally cannot know about those, and they can't tell us about that. But I cannot imagine that there have not been discussions about, will she take a manslaughter for, 180 days in jail, or blah, 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 going back and forth. And it might just come down to, she's not willing to accept anything. But I can't imagine that the Commonwealth, after what happened, is not now trying to get rid of this in a settlement type way. I can't imagine that they're saying it's second-degree murder and prison time or nothing, is my point.
Right. And as a former prosecutor, I mean, you also, you technically work for the state, you work for the people. And of course, you want to give the people what they want to a degree. You want to give the family what they want. I would imagine the O'Keefe family is absolutely not giving up on this, as they shouldn't, right? If that was me, I would want to find justice for my loved one. But I would say the people of Massachusetts at this point, of, Canton, Dedham, Norfolk County, I mean, I would say they're drastically divided. So at this point, it's like, what is the right thing to do here? I think it's a super tough situation.
It's a really tough situation. And this is what prosecutors deal with, though, is not every case is so clear cut of a, gang member killing some innocent person. You deal with a lot of these cases that are kind of on the fringe. But you're right. At the end of the day, there's a dead police officer, and they've got to do something about that. I don't think they can simply walk away from it. And so they've got to at least show the community that they're trying to hold somebody responsible for this. So maybe that's a lot of what you're seeing here. I will say this too. I do think, first of all, I think Cannoni already made up her mind. I think she made up her mind before she sat down before the hearing. And I was surprised that she didn't just give her ruling. I think she's going to issue
just
some written ruling, at a later date, so she doesn't have to face the cameras and everything else. But I do think also that her ruling is going to be something along the lines of, the defense is legally prohibited from bringing this argument at this point, and that they didn't preserve it by objecting at the time, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But I still feel that she will then set it for trial. And I still feel that the Commonwealth can either do the right thing by dismissing it anyways, or somehow come to some sort of plea negotiation. But I feel like if she were to accept a plea to anything, it would almost be like accepting, they put on such a, their defense isn't, I didn't do it, or you can't prove it. Their defense is so strongly that she was set up. How do you accept a plea after that? I don't know.
I so feel that. I really do. I thought about that a lot, and I've thought about the defense a lot, and I've always been pretty open about where I stood with this case. And, we don't need to necessarily get into that, but I had said on a recent podcast I did, which was specifically about Trooper Proctor and about the police fallout. I just remember that I made this comparison of Mark Furman and Michael Proctor before he was set to testify, because I wasn't sure if he was going to testify. I was like, I don't know how they're even going to do this if he doesn't. But all I knew was that there was rumors of, the feds, rumors of his text messages and all these things. And I'm like, look, we've got seemingly a dirty cop here. And people were so mad at me. I had people block me that I didn't
Oh,
even know
really?
existed, which is
Yeah.
like, okay, it's whatever. But after the fact, I was like, I think that comparison was a little too nice for Proctor. And also, you guys shouldn't be mad at me. You should be mad at him because, in my opinion, he's part of the reason there was so much reasonable doubt in this case.
Yeah.
And why in January, how the hell are you going to move forward with a guy like that? A guy that
No.
has, I mean, I am, ugh, it really makes me feel dirty what he
Yeah.
said, what he did. And I cannot imagine living in that county in Massachusetts. Ugh, it makes me feel yucky.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm of awfulness for the Commonwealth because the whole case that the defense was trying to make is that this is a dirty department and these are bad cops and they're myopic in the way that they're treating this and they're biased and everything else and blah blah blah. And then lo and behold, you've got this cop who happens to be the lead investigator who is just saying the most vile things imaginable
Mhm.
over these text messages. It really could not get worse. But from the Commonwealth's perspective, I just didn't feel that they handled that well at all. I
Yeah,
agree with you. They had to call him. I don't think if they tried to avoid calling him, that probably would have been a bigger problem. But
right.
after having called him, the point should have been made. This guy's awful. And this guy said some horrible things. And you can think all of that. That doesn't change the fact of what we have here as far as their evidence goes. Now, they kind of limped into that argument. And because they did, the defense was able to say, what kind of a person would plant evidence? That kind of a person would plant evidence. What kind of a person would get people to conspire to lie about a murder? That kind of a and it just worked right into their whole argument. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
But interesting thing, like you pointed out, if everything we're hearing is true, they were still leaning towards a manslaughter conviction, which means they don't really buy all of that conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. It's a tough buy. It's a
Yeah.
really, really tough buy. I've gone over this in my head a bunch of times. But the whole Proctor thing too, I was just annoyed because I was like, all you have to say, bro, is that you were so angry that she allegedly killed one of your own, and that's why you were acting like this. It's not like, I mean, that's all he had to say with to sort
Yeah.
of, but he never said that. Not once. I was waiting for that. Like, that's all you got to do is be like, she killed, one of my brothers. Of course I'm going to act like that, but I
Yeah.
wish I didn't. But no, he absolutely didn't. Guys,
Yeah.
I want to remind you all to follow Josh on YouTube. It's at CR Confidential. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Courtroom
Okay.
Confidential at CR Confidential. And if I could plug something really quickly,
Please.
we just opened memberships. So we're offering up a bunch of new content. There's going to be members only videos and live streams and everything else. So it's a lot of work we're putting on our plate, but
Yeah.
we're happy to do it. So everybody, please go check it out. And if you click on join, you can check out all the new benefits that we have with memberships. And we have a new video out today on the killing of Rachel Morin. Do you remember this case?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I very much pay attention to those cases with the illegal immigrants as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
awful. I saw that you posted that. So I will definitely check that out later.
Yeah.
And everybody go
Fascinating,
join.
horrible story. Yeah.
Yeah, no, when is that trial?
Oh, I don't think it's for a while. He was just
Okay.
arraigned. They just got him back to Maryland where he's going to be tried. I imagine that won't happen for some time. But the
Okay.
investigation behind the whole thing is the most fascinating part. I mean, they went from Maryland to Los Angeles down to El Salvador. I mean, it was just incredible.
They use some kind of software that's somewhat new. Is that correct?
They did a lot of this genetic genealogy that we're hearing a
Okay.
lot about, where they were able to basically, through his DNA, find family members, reach out to the family members that got them their first kind of leads on the thing. It's a
Yeah.
really, the high technology and use of just, old fashioned police work combined. It's a fascinating case.
All right, I'm gonna check out that video later. Oh my gosh. No, it's no,
Please
I
do.
mean it's heartbreaking and it was
Yeah.
crazy that it took so long. But It just matters that they caught the guy
Yeah,
allegedly,
very
and
true.
that he will get what he deserves. But just before we move on, I just want to clarify because I heard this or I researched this. You actually worked for Alan Jackson in
Yeah,
LA.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
how long ago was that?
Oh, I've known Alan for close to 20 years.
Oh,
I was a law clerk in the DA's office before I joined the DA's office, and one of the first trials I worked on was the prosecution of Phil Spector, and so I
oh,
met Alan then and worked on him during that trial, which was fascinating. And he was, already a absolute stud in the office at that point,
mm,
and it was just incredible to watch, these very experienced attorneys put on
yeah.
a hell of a trial. And then we became very close and friends. And he was kind of a mentor of mine. I joined the DA's office. I was there for 10 years. He left the office before I did and went into private practice. And we kept in touch. And then when I left the office in 2015, I joined his law firm. So I was a law partner of his at his defense firm that he's at now for about, I don't know, 7 years or so. I just left recently, a couple of years ago. I'm no longer with the firm.
Okay.
But so I've worked with him on both sides, prosecution and defense, and he's been a very close friend and, like I said, a mentor of mine for some period of time.
That is so awesome. Oh my,
Yeah,
I didn't realize you worked for him after the fact. And
yeah,
Charlotte wants to know, does he ever look a mess? Okay, no, I'd say he's
yeah.
pretty polished.
Wait till you see his hair once he gets out of a pool. It's not quite as finely coiffed as you see on TV, but
That's very funny. That's
yeah,
very, very funny.
yeah. The only thing I will say though is I don't know anything about the Karen Reed case. As I was heading out
Yeah.
the door, that case was heading in the door. So all I've ever known about it has been since I left that firm.
Okay, got it. Do you know I have a friend, Beth Harris. Do you know her?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know, but okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She had mentioned to me she had also worked a bit with Alan Jackson. And I was just fascinated because, I have some good friends that have very high profile clients, defense attorneys, and I've watched them argue and I'm very impressed with them. But I was just really impressed with Alan Jackson
No, he
throughout this
is.
trial.
Yeah, he's in kind of a class of his own. He's just really, really talented, very, very smart, very hardworking. But I think and I think you saw it in this trial. The thing that I think he distinguishes himself at is that there's no one with kind of a quicker mind in court. A
Mm,
lot of cross examination is about being able to listen and pivot and ask follow up questions to the answer that was just given and not stick
yeah.
to a script. And his ability to do that is really bar none. He just, he would never let the witness get away with anything before he jumped on it and then went on, 5 or 6 follow-up questions that were likely not in his pre-prepared questions.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. And I'm just pinning some of these comments. You've got a lot of fans in here. Um, but I read somewhere that it was it was encouraged for lawyers to take improv classes so they
uh,
could. I mean, did you hear? I mean, especially in LA, I feel like maybe you would have heard that, but
I've not heard that, and we
oh,
didn't have to do that in our training, but I would say that's probably a great idea because
yeah.
the lawyers who are trial lawyers
Yeah.
who are not as effective are the ones that are just constantly tied to their notes and they're not really listening. But it is the improv is a really good way of explaining it because it's a lot about listening to what that person is saying and responding to that question and following where it may lead you, but
Exactly.
then being able to adapt if it is hurtful. It could lead you down a path you don't want to go, and being able to pivot and come back to something more helpful to you. So yeah, I could see that being a really valuable training tool.
Yes, I mean I heard this and I'm friendly with Arthur Idala. He reps Harvey
Mhm.
Weinstein. He was essentially an acting major before he became a lawyer.
I
So
don't
it's
doubt
like,
that at all. Knowing
yeah,
Arthur, I don't doubt that at all. Yeah.
it's so funny. And so I'm like, this all makes a lot of sense. But let's move on to Young Thug because
Yeah.
okay, I'm a little confused, Josh. At this point, I truly don't understand why they are torturing Lil Woody. I mean, it looks like just painful, and
Yeah.
obviously it's entertaining to many of us. We laugh, we think it's funny, but like this is this guy's life here, and
Yeah.
he said something on the stand yesterday that I thought was pretty profound for him. He's like, I've paid my dues, I've done my time for my wrongdoing here, so leave me alone. And yes,
Yeah.
Taryn, I don't recall. Joanne, yeah, I don't recall. That made me laugh. But what
Yeah.
are they trying to get out of him here?
You know, the at end of the day, that trial is a gang trial. And that kind of gets lost in the whole thing. And so in any gang trial, and I'm not trying to throw anybody, cast aspersions on anyone, but I've done many, many gang trials here in LA. That's a huge part of what we would handle as prosecutors. And a lot of them are like this. Every
Mm,
single one of your witnesses is uncooperative, doesn't want to be there, hates you, even if they're a prosecution witness and they're supposed to be friendly to what you're trying to accomplish. You may be even
yep.
trying to convict the person that killed their friend, their homie, and they
Yeah.
still hate you as the prosecutor. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what he's doing is kind of par for the course when it comes to these gang crimes, where it's, I don't recall, I don't know, I lied, I'm lying now, I was lying then. Like, they don't really, it's not the same world when you're dealing with a usual civilian witness who like actually cares about their reputation, right?
Right.
He
Right.
does he
Totally.
does not care. He just wants off the stand. But I think the larger point is that this thing is such a mess, and you have made it so much more miserable on this poor guy by
Hmm.
threatening jail time, by, the whole idea that now he's getting recalled and going through everything all over again. It
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is like, I can't imagine this actually making its way to a verdict. I just
Really?
think too much damage has been done. I can't see the juror. I mean, if you're a juror, you imagine you've been sitting
No.
through months of this nonsense. Every single day, you've got to wait around while the attorneys argue with each other, and you come back in for another 15 minutes of testimony. Then you get told that, go home, we'll call you. How many weeks have they been gone dealing with this thing with Judge Glanville? And
Yeah.
then the kid come back, brand new judge. And by the way, here's a witness, and we'd like you to disregard a bunch of stuff that we told you before. I mean, if you're a jury, you're like, come on, I didn't sign up for
Right.
this. I'm done.
Right. So why do you think she rejected the motion to dismiss yesterday? I mean, I know there's like that's kind of loaded, but I was like listening and I was like, just do it already. This is
I
so
know.
pointless.
I
I mean,
know.
it's so crazy.
I think that at the end of the day, again, a lot of the times these judges are making decisions based upon what they feel they can get away with. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to say that judges are just trying to get away with stuff, but it's like,
Hmm.
I think she may feel that it just wasn't there from a legal perspective to actually dismiss it.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's going to be crying any tears if the people decide to dismiss it.
Right, right. And it's Sue, you like this judge so much better. I have to
Yeah.
say, I don't know if it's her voice or her accent, but she's very welcoming. She's very kind. She's almost maternal in a way,
Yeah.
which I can appreciate. And I'm not sure if that necessarily matters. But I liked the way, when Lil Woody they mentioned he's a hostile witness and he's like, what's that mean? And she's like, don't worry, it's all good, just answer the questions. Like
Yeah.
she just kind of reminded me of like, yeah, like she's a nice auntie or mom, whatever.
She's also
But
not exhausted, right?
yeah.
She also hasn't been putting up with this for months. So she's
Okay,
kind of
fair.
coming off the bench and maybe a little more enthusiasm. We'll see how she's holding up when we're getting into Christmas.
Okay, that is extremely, extremely fair. You're so right. You're so right. Okay, do you happen to know for sure if Lil Woody has immunity federally, or is it just statewide immunity? Because this came up yesterday when he asked, and the prosecutor's like, yeah, 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 you have federal immunity. And I was like, I don't know about that. Because the judge was
I
like, I
I
don't know,
mean,
does he?
well, I'll say this. I can't imagine the judge not knowing that. So if the
She didn't
prosecutor,
know. She literally didn't. I mean, you guys in the chat can correct me, but I swear she looked to the prosecutor and was like, does he know? I mean, I think I'm like
I mean,
95% sure.
I don't. The answer is I don't know. I do know that the state prosecutors cannot grant him federal immunity. They don't have that kind of authority. So if they've granted him immunity for the purposes of testifying, and they didn't get a federal prosecutor to sign off on federal immunity, then he does not have that.
Oh, yeah. No, I
But
think
they may have done that. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't remember reading or seeing anything about an agreement taking place between the AUSA and the Georgia prosecutors.
yeah. So Taryn said, it looks like he
Okay.
only
Well,
has
there you
state
go.
immunity. And yeah, the judge didn't know. And
Wow.
Disney, yes, it was the prosecutor who answered him. And I put it on my Twitter yesterday. And somebody wrote, and I just said, I'm not sure. And somebody wrote, no, she's lying. Like, I was like, what the hell? That's
Yeah.
horrible. I mean,
Well, I mean, that's a huge problem. If she is not being truthful with him, that's a very big problem.
and maybe she didn't know, but yeah, I don't think that he's done anything to, and again, maybe I'm not aware, but I don't think he's done anything to break anything on his agreement, rather, right?
Right.
I mean, he's testifying, he went to jail, he's done his part. So, but okay, something else that I will say, we do feel bad for Lil Woody, right? We totally do.
Yeah.
But he's now making a lot of money as an influencer. And I know this for a
Are you
fact.
serious?
Go on YouTube, you can look up these creators. They're putting him on these speed dating videos. And I know, again, for a fact that he is making up to 20 grand for some of these appearances.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. So, like, we can all feel bad for him, but guys, he is like a household name at this point, and he's making some bread. So he'll be okay.
The one guy who's going to be the
rumor.
winner in this whole thing is going to be Lil Woody. I love it.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. You're totally right. I mean,
Incredible.
yesterday was gold. He was giving us gold. I have to say.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh wait,
But have
exactly.
you heard that the prosecution, and maybe people in the comments know, I've heard that they gave a statement saying that they expect to be done somewhere around February. Have you heard this?
I have not heard that. That's terrifying, actually.
It is. And I will say, if that is their estimate, they've blown through their estimates before now. So I imagine it would be way longer than that. Okay.
Yeah, Dizzy says yes.
Wow.
Yep. This is, and oh, it's so funny. Until YSL thinks no, he made it pretty clear that he made it up. Whatever he said about Young Thug, he's like, I don't know what the hell he did or didn't do. I was just making it up. I mean, it's like you said, Josh, you have experience with this. Nobody's gonna talk. No one wants to be there, and it's probably scary for them in a way.
Oh yeah, I mean they've got lives after this whole mess, right?
Yeah.
And they've got to deal with living in their neighborhoods and on the street and everything else. So you can when I was a gang prosecutor, I never hated them for it. I mean, I understood their position. They don't want to be bothered by this whole thing. They've got to leave court when this is all done and deal with their lives and everything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that's why too, you rarely, in fact, I'm going to say never see cases of this size when you're dealing with these kind of issues, because it's just too much and too complex. That's why the prosecutors bit off way more than they could chew on this whole thing. It's an unwieldy mess. They should have broken it up into about 6 different cases if they wanted to pursue it and handled it that way. But trying to do it all together, I think, was just an ego trip, and it's completely backfired.
I mean, and just going back to the fact that this whole case, it's very confusing, because I'm like, this is, he's an artist. This is expression. This is art. This is like saying Eli Roth should be put in jail because he wants to murder people and hang them from a fucking hook. Excuse my, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just seems very odd to me. And at least I don't live in that county, because I would be so angry about my money going to this for so effing long. I would be beyond angry, because I don't feel like the people feel like they're in danger, or their lives are at risk, or their children's lives are at risk. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I usually don't buy into that argument about, oh, it's wasting taxpayer money and everything else, because it's kind of
Okay.
like, the prosecutors are there whether they're trying a case or not. But in this case, I think I do feel like it really has become a waste of resources, because we're just, the amount of time and effort and energy and everything else going into this. And like you said, at the end of the day, it's kind of a fringe argument that they're making
Yeah.
anyways. And I cannot see anybody getting behind the worthwhile, like, there doesn't seem to be an argument of a bunch of people going, no, this needs to be done. We need this kind of justice in our county. I don't see
Right.
that contingent of people.
Exactly. And just going back to my other point, like when you're a prosecutor, you essentially work for the people. You
Right.
work for, the Commonwealth, and it's like nobody's asking for this. Literally
Right.
not one person
Right.
that I'm aware of. So, um now let's just get into this case that I'm dying to get into with you. And I
Yeah.
actually emailed the defendant's defense attorney this morning because I read something that I cannot believe I missed. And, I'll give a backstory to this, but the prosecuting attorney was not reelected. So now I'm kind of like, what is going to happen with this case?
The
Because
one who
this,
made all the statements?
yes, Lisa
Oh,
Fugate,
okay.
she's also the one that is pushing the death penalty on this young woman, this 21-year-old defendant. But I'll get into that. So guys, I've done a couple episodes on this on the Outlier podcast because it's a really disturbing but very confusing case because so many things are a bit unknown. But the 1 year anniversary, and I hate saying anniversary because that marks something positive usually, but the 1 year mark of the death of this 17-month-old in Kentucky, her name was Elena Henry, just passed in July of 2024. This baby died in July of 2023. Her mother brought her to the hospital, and her death, the baby's death, was essentially ruled non-accidental blunt force trauma to the head. She was airlifted, to a Tennessee Children's Hospital in Knoxville. She didn't make it. But what happened was her Erica Lawson, she's the 21-year-old mother. She looks so young. I can pull up her picture in a minute. She had another child, and Elena was her second baby. And it is stated in the indictment that it was over a 27-day period where this baby possibly allegedly started being abused, because all of the other photos, and I know photos can, they can fake everything, fake a life, but this baby looks cute, chubby, happy with bows, so this whole thing, I was like, wait, this is so crazy. But 27 days is a long freaking time for, a child to be abused, whatever. So
Yeah.
Erica Lawson's brother had went to police and said, I see burn marks on Elena, and she's not even 2, and I see bruises. Well, the police went to look for baby Elena, and for Erica, they couldn't find them. Next thing you know, she's brought to the hospital. She's pronounced dead. Well, social media started this firestorm, and this is where it gets very disturbing, but I'm not necessarily certain if it's all true. They were saying that Erica Lawson was possibly pimping out her baby for drugs. So they ordered a DNA. I mean, I think in the motion that I sent you, Josh, it says exactly what they had tested and everything.
Yeah.
But the prosecutor made this announcement on Facebook, super proud, saying, I'm proud to say we are now pursuing the death penalty against Erica Lawson. And people are saying, well, what about the DNA test? Did you find this, any male DNA? And she said, that's coming. That's coming. She didn't necessarily, I guess, act like a prosecutor would and say, we don't, innocent until proven guilty, whatever. She said, it's coming. Well, turns out that there was no male DNA found on baby Elena, but the
Yeah.
prosecution did not disclose this at all. And she's still making statements on Facebook, whatever. And Erica Lawson's attorney in January filed this motion to dismiss the death penalty. We don't know if that's happening yet. And he cited all of these crazy things that Lisa Fugate was saying on Facebook, what she was doing. And there also was they're having a motion to, or I'm sorry, a hearing to change venues from Bell County, Kentucky, because she apparently is the most hated person in that county because of what everybody thinks to be true. So
Yeah.
Josh, my issues here are other people are most likely involved with baby Elena's death, right? Most likely. Erica Lawson is not talking. I, I mean, I don't understand this at all. Like, I've said this, like, is she a capo in the mafia where she's this 21-year-old girl facing death and she's not talking? That's number one. Number two, I just read, oh, the prosecutor, sorry, I'll put that, Lisa Fugate. However, she was bumped from her position in May. I just read that. So I had emailed the attorney actually right before. I'll see if he wrote back to see what was going on. Did he write back? No, he didn't write back yet. Not yet. But I was like, what's going to happen with that? Like, is she still going to be on it? And then also, like, they don't have a trial date yet. I don't get that either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, a lot to unpack on this one. I will say, okay, well, one, I will say, I think they should get a change of venue because the fact that the DA, so if I understand this correctly, and I think I do, the DA at the time who's making all these Facebook posts and making all of these statements that we now know are not entirely true. I'm not going to go as far as to say she's lying, but she may not have been forthcoming with all of the facts, was running for DA at the time, right?
So I don't think she was running for DA. I think she's like a special prosecutor and they just call it I don't know. I mean, you know better than I don't get all these names. Special prosecutor, Commonwealth prosecutor. That's what she was. And that's what she was running for re-election.
Special prosecutor?
Yeah.
Yeah. I read somewhere that I thought she was running for re-election.
Yeah. And that's what it was. And then I just read that she lost.
Prosecutor.
That's why I was like, I didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because if she was trying to make this case a political issue to benefit her in a campaign, then I think there is a very strong argument that she has like unduly and inappropriately influenced and tainted that entire community and therefore that jury pool. I mean, usually when these cases, you see this a lot, that people make these arguments of change of venue, we want out of here, too many people know about this in the community.
Yeah.
For the most part, I don't usually agree with those because it's amazing. You know, we're in the weeds when it comes to these types of things, but you can ask people even about huge cases, especially in a place like Los Angeles or New York. You ask a person on the street and they're like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about, but I know that the Yankees just lost last night, or I know that my kids are, you know what I mean? They're just concerned with other things in their life, right? These smaller communities, though, it becomes much more of a concern. And especially if this has become like a political issue in that community, I do agree that a change of venue is probably the smart thing to do here.
Yeah.
But as far as like, why are other people not being charged? I don't know. You would imagine that if other people and she wasn't responsible, she would be happy to talk to someone else. Perhaps they haven't given her some sort of proffer agreement to do that. I don't know. It's a lot of, you know, reading the tea leaves to try to figure that one out. But the whole case is just, it's awful because you have, you know, one of the more serious things you're ever going to confront, which is the death of a child. And you want to make sure that that's handled appropriately. Right. And instead of that being handled appropriately, it looks like it's become a political tool and a social media meme. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah. And I joined a bunch of Facebook groups. I cannot get anyone to talk to me. She hasn't offered any kind of explanation, Charlotte. I can just read you really quickly the charges against her. Murder, count 1. Failure to report child dependency, neglect, or abuse, first offense, count 2. Criminal abuse in the first degree, count 3. And then wanton endangerment in the first degree. So those are the 4 charges. So the whole report or the failure to report child dependency and neglect, that is putting the onus on someone else, Josh. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
yeah,
right.
that's the way I would read that, is that that's not her participating in it, but her failing to report it. Yeah.
So there's somebody, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And I'm like, what the hell is going
Well,
on? So in
it
this, and you know what? I'm gonna Dizzy, I should put this in the Discord, this specific document, because this is the only thing that's available. And I actually paid a lot of money for the original indictment, and they took my money and they're like, oh, we can't give it to you. And I'm like, wait, I don't understand. They're like, we can't give it to you until it's ready. And I was like, okay, that's silly. But anyway, so let me see. Yeah, they basically have everything that Lisa Fugate said on Facebook as their exhibits, and what everybody else is saying on Facebook, which is again horrific. And you can't blame them if they are under the impression that she did this. But let me tell you the materials submitted um, for the forensic lab examination of baby Elena. They did a sexual assault evidence collection kit, and they did oh, and that one is actually still pending per these motions right here. That's still pending. But the other ones that came back with no male DNA, that was a vaginal swab, a buccal standard swab, oral swabs, external genital swabs, and anal swabs. So and then it says, yeah, item 3 is held for additional analysis, which again is the sexual assault evidence kit. So I'm beyond confused about this. I wish there was more information, because again, if this happened the way Lisa Fugate believes that it happened and other people are involved, this is disgusting, and more than one person should face the death penalty and should be off the street. But the fact is, if you were living in or around Bell County, Kentucky, hide your kids, hide your wife, right? This is
Yeah.
gross, but
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. If what she is saying on Facebook is true, then you're talking about the outer realm of the most heinous things that you can imagine a human being doing to a child, okay?
mhm, yeah,
But you don't release that kind of information to the public unless you're absolutely sure of what you're accusing people of, and if you're absolutely sure you're going to be able to prove that at trial. And now for these results to come back, and then what are they going to have to unwind this or unpack it, or they haven't charged her with it. So I mean, again, I am certainly not trying to put myself in the position of defending anyone who may have done those things,
I
but
know.
I am in a position of saying, as a prosecutor, you don't start making public statements unless you know you have all your ducks in a row. And if I could say this too, it just bothers me when prosecutors make these kind of statements beforehand anyways, because that has just so much more undue influence on the people and the public at large. Defendants say stuff, they make and it's never really has the same impact, because
Yeah,
they're defending themselves. When the prosecutor starts making these types of statements, it really has an impact. And I am very bothered by this kind of new trend that we see of prosecutors doing this. When I was in the prosecutor's office, we never opened our mouth. I mean, the whole thing was, we will allow the speaking to be done in court.
yeah.
Once a conviction's there, I'm happy to talk to you about anything. But before then, let me do my job, which I'll do all my talking inside the courtroom.
Yes, I completely agree with you, and I think that, I saw this, and I've been looking into this case, and I saw Lisa Fugate's actions, I saw Carrie Morrissey's actions, and look, I saw Adam Lally's actions the other day on Friday, where I don't think, and he was necessarily truthful in saying this took months, the jury took months. No, they didn't. It took them days to come forward. So I just feel like I get it, right? I get it. We have a lot of information in our heads. We don't always act as we should, but when you are a lawyer, a prosecutor, you are your profession is the law. You have to uphold that. You of all people. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So,
No,
yeah,
100%.
Hey Jay,
I mean,
Joshua with the good hair.
hey, Jay.
You do have good hair, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, when did you start going gray? Just curious.
Oh God. I was still in law school, I think. I mean, it was I started going gray early. Yeah.
law
And
school.
at first I think I tried to fight it, and then I just embraced it, and now here we are.
Well, fun fact for you, if I did not dye my hair, I would probably look like you. So
In fact, I like that.
yes, it's totally hereditary for me. But no, I didn't mean to bring everybody down with this case. I just wanted to put it out there because they still have not set a trial date. And I do firmly believe that's because they're trying to find these other perps involved. Oh, and I know for a fact that the FBI is involved because I did call the Middlesboro, Kentucky police, and they said yes, the FBI is involved. So it's just taking forever. And then I can just read to you what her defense attorney said to me in an email. I don't even know why I bother. Like, I know they can't tell me anything of substance, but especially it's like I just have to try. So
Yeah.
let me see. Okay. So he said, Lauren, thank you for reaching out. I'm unable to make any public statements regarding this case, but that may change in the future. I encourage all journalists to evaluate the actual evidence and direct them to the publicly available data, which I guess he's saying if you don't see the evidence, it's probably not there.
Yeah, that's a weird statement.
Is that weird? Okay, it is
Yeah.
weird, right?
Yeah, yeah. The
Okay.
publicly available evidence. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, because it's really not there. Nothing's public. But we'll just go back to your hair. No, I'm just kidding. Best hair on YouTube. Yeah. But no, Disney wants to go back to Karen Reed for a minute. How long does Josh think it will take the judge to put out her ruling regarding the jury issues?
Well, like I said, I think she's already made her ruling. I was surprised that she didn't just say it that day. I was fully convinced on the day of the hearing that she probably already had it typed out and ready to go, but then she just jumped off the bench, before making everybody's head spin. That was actually comical to me how quickly she left the bench when that hearing
she had
was
to get to
over.
the Cape. She doesn't want to
She
hit
just
that traffic.
yeeted out of there. But I think that she's already made her decision. I don't think that anything that the attorney said during that hearing was groundbreaking. They've already put all of that in their moving papers, so she's probably already made a decision. I don't know. If I want to be cynical, I'd probably say she'll release some sort of written statement on Friday so that it hopefully, gets lost over the weekend or something. But that would be my suspicion. I mean, there's no reason to wait. You know what I mean? If she's made the decision, she's made the decision. That all of this delay is really for no reason.
Yeah, Sheila says, had she ever ruled from the bench? I don't know.
That's a good point too. I feel like she is one of those judges who likes to, I'll take this under submission kind of a deal.
She did make a
sometimes
couple
is good
rulings,
because
right?
What's that?
She did make a couple rulings right from the bench on certain things that were like originally with the jury slip when she's like, no, and she's like, F off, Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going back to all the kind of motions and limine that they had before trial began, and it seemed like she did like to kind of take her time to go back, which sometimes is good. You want a judge to research things and make sure they have everything right. But I feel like she really needs to give everybody an answer on this so that we can start to move on with our lives, because they got to prepare for trial.
I know.
I mean, trial is set, right? And it's coming up quickly.
Well, and somebody said in the chat, like, can you imagine another trial?
No.
I can't. I can't handle social media on it. I can't. Like, I've never been dragged, harassed more in my life. And I feel like of all people, I don't really get into the weeds that much. And I've never experienced
what
that.
A weird trial for that kind of a reaction too, right? That she's not a celebrity. He's not a celebrity. It's not, it's one of those cases that, I mean, I understand a police officer lost his life and that's horrible. And the girlfriend's being accused, and you can understand why it would get a little bit of traction, but for it to just firestorm across the country. I mean, when it's being mentioned on national news, you know that something, and again, no celebrities involved. It just, people went nuts for
Yeah.
this thing. But I think a large part of that had to do with the defense being like, this was a setup. She was framed. They killed her inside. Those are dog bites. I mean, or killed him, pardon me, inside.
Yeah.
Those are dog bites. That, you know, that kind of stuff gets a lot of people's attention.
Right. And I mean, when TMZ covered it and they actually, Harvey said it was the biggest case since OJ, I was like, shit, is it? I was like, I
I don't,
mean, do you not think so?
I mean, was Murdoch was pretty big,
Oh,
right? That
yeah,
that
that's
had a
true.
lot of attention.
Yeah.
I feel like even Depp v. Heard had everybody kind of talking about it for a while. But it for a case, like I said, that didn't seem to involve, if you just on paper, it wouldn't be
Yeah.
something that you would think would catch this much attention. But
No,
and yeah, if we're gonna have to go through 8 more weeks of this whole thing,
I mean, it would not take 8 weeks. I don't think it would
I
take
don't
that
think
long
so
this
either.
time, right?
That's
I
another
mean,
reason why I think the Commonwealth should just dismiss those other charges, go with one count, streamline their entire case. I mean, a lot of the reason this whole thing took as long as it did is because the Commonwealth wanted to combat that prosecution or the defense theory about the cover up. So they called
yeah,
all of those people from inside of the home. If it wasn't for that defense theory, none of those people in a normal case, none of those people ever would have
yeah.
been called. None of them are percipient to what took place, according to the police.
Well,
So
right.
why call
I
all
was
of
going to
those
say,
people? Right.
according to the police, but yeah,
Right.
you ask me. I mean, if that's my house, I'm getting called. Yeah, whatever. So I'm from New Hampshire, and I was not covering this case or the Reed case until January, and I had this kid I went to high school with. He's like, "Can you start covering this?" He's like, "It's right near us," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then he had told me his uncle was friends with certain people in town. And look, I could not verify a lot of what his uncle said. I did speak to his uncle. He had a lot to say about that community and about not necessarily like the Alberts that, whatever. I'm not going to get into the names because I just don't care. But it was interesting the way that this community lived and the way that they were all intertwined with each other. It was small.
Yeah.
They all knew each
Yeah.
other. I'm not going to say some of them were swingers, but maybe they were. And not, again, not the witnesses, but the people in the community. So I just found all of this to be super interesting while going through all of this evidence with, Karen and Brian Higgins. And obviously, you know, I had said before, I don't necessarily buy into any type of conspiracy per se, but if anybody had some kind of reason, I always was like, we should maybe look a little bit closer at him because he seems to be the only one that had this. And then a few things he said on the stand that I had reviewed by, everybody in the chat knows Jack Fox, Peter Hyatt, all about deception. The one thing he said that was just so silly when they're like, Alan Jackson asked him about an instance, and he said, "Were you telling the truth then?" And Brian Higgins was like, "I always tell the truth." And it's like, what? You like talking in absolutes. Nobody
Yeah.
always tells the truth. You're not answering the
Right.
questions. And this went for a lot of witnesses. But anyway, I'm getting into the weeds again, which is like so easy to do with this case. you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, that's why it was so great to go to CrimeCon when we were right in the throes of it to discuss
I
this
know.
and hear people's opinions without having anyone attack me. I was like, this is
Yeah.
great. Everybody can talk and be right, normal.
Yeah. I don't know too. It is. Yeah, I know a lot of people who are just kind of afraid almost to comment on the case because they feel like they're just going to get backlash from someone, and it's like, I mean, now you can imagine what takes place inside of a deliberation room, right? I mean, no wonder these juries can't agree on something. If it seems like everyone outside of the courtroom is evenly split, no wonder everybody inside of the courtroom in that deliberation room couldn't agree on anything. I
I
always say
know.
to clients when, if you're trying to predict how are things going to go at trial, it's hard to
Yeah.
get 12 people to agree on what to get for lunch. So don't think that you're exactly going to be able to predict what these people are going to do.
That's a really, really good point. Oh my gosh. And like I said, just to be clear, because I'm not sure if everyone in the chat has heard any of my commentary on the case, while I'm not certain of a conspiracy, I did not think that the state proves in any way that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car. So, and I have, like I said, I have some thoughts. I've even thought about, could John possibly have moved his own? But I mean, I just don't even know. I've thought about this so much just at night going to bed. And then when I wake up at 3 a.m. and I can't sleep, I'm like, I wonder what really happened. I know it's like, it's not easy being this crazy, I have to say. Really not easy. But I'm just looking. Yeah, Sheila, it is like 12 angry men. I'm looking. Oh, they were talking about corruption. How else did those cops afford a $1.5 million house? Well,
I don't know. Good point. Yeah, that was a
no,
beautiful
either.
looking home from the outside. Not many people talked about that.
You know what? It really is a nice looking home. I mean, I feel like Brian Albert did some television, that pays a little bit. They get side
Maybe.
hustles. I don't know. I'm just trying not to, yeah, whatever. But I also put out a video today, just really quick. It was George Santos. We all know George Santos, the disgraced former congressman of New York. That's my state.
Yeah.
He had a pretrial hearing, or I believe, I'm not sure the time, but his case is so wild, like
Yeah.
so wild. His lawyers are comparing him to El Chapo, saying that he's been talked about in the media just like El Chapo. So the jurors need to be polled on their opinions of him. But I'm like, hold the phone. He won't shut up, George
I
Santos.
know.
Right? He's
Yeah.
obsessed with just like talking and having a presence. So why is that the court's fault?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay. So you're with me on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like completely alone on that, because I'm like, this is so silly. But he could spend up to 22 years in prison if he's
Wow.
convicted on a slew of these fraud and financial charges. He essentially defrauded all of his donors and his supporters. And it's gross, because a lot of people are also treating him like this fun gay hero at this point. And
Ugh,
I'm like, find another fun gay hero, because
seriously.
he ain't it.
Yeah, seriously. I didn't know he was looking at that much time. That's a dead serious case.
Oh no, it's super serious. His attorneys tried to get 3 of the criminal charges dismissed in July, to no avail. And those were, I forget, those were like it was like he was trying to get aggravated identity theft dismissed, which is a big one, I guess. And one other one, I can't read my handwriting, so we'll just
It's a
skip it.
federal case, right?
Yes, it's a federal
Yeah,
case.
they love to add that aggravated ID theft because that carries a
Oh,
mandatory minimum of prison time. They love to
oh
tag that
really?
on. Yeah, that's a little federal trick. You'll see that on a lot of cases because it's got a mandatory. I think it's like a 5-year 5-year prison mandatory minimum. So they tack that little thing on there just to make your life miserable.
Oh, I did not. That's really good to know. So that's why he wanted to get it dismissed then, clearly. And they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
nope, sorry. Oh, that shit's crazy. Well, this is also just random, but yesterday I had made a video and then I deleted it because I felt super guilty, because I still like, people are bad, right? But death is death, and people have families. And there's this attorney, and you can look him up after, but his name was Sal Strazulo, and he was this Brooklyn-based attorney back in the early 2000s. He repped like Foxy Brown, a bunch of different celebrities. Uh, he was found dead in his car yesterday
Oh my
outside of
God.
Brooklyn, and so, but I believe it was a suicide. The They're not reporting it as a suicide. However, all of my Brooklyn sources were like 18th Avenue is going crazy right now, because what happened was, this guy, he also was known. There's like a whole profile about him in the New York Times, that he was like this nightlife lawyer. He was, like so great, and he hung out with his clients and they were all famous. And well, I guess around 2017 he started defrauding his elderly clients, and he was running
Oh,
this allegedly running this Ponzi
yeah.
scheme, taking them for like over $3.5 million. He was charged in April, this past April, lost his law license, and they started just seizing a lot of his assets, whatever. But I was talking to Arthur Idala, because Arthur's from that neighborhood, and I was like, well, after the news broke that he died, I was like, what was he facing? What kind of prison time? And he's like, maybe 10 years. I was like,
Yeah.
that's not terrible, right? Like, that's for all. I mean, sorry, I don't want to say what
Right, right.
measures you to one to kill themselves. But I felt so icky all day because I did this video, and I also was like looking through my DMs on Instagram, and he DM'd me in 2021, and I shit you not, this is our message. Like it's so weird, and I can't believe I wrote this. I'm a weirdo. So he writes to me, "Have we met?" And I wrote, "I'm not sure. I don't think so!" Exclamation, because I'm a female and I'm trying to be like, hey, I'm not trying to shut you down, but like, I don't think so. And then he wrote, "Let's grab lunch next week." And I wrote, "Are you going to murder me?" That's what I wrote. I guess I was kidding. I don't know what. And then he said, "Ha, what? LOL." And I just wrote, "We don't know each other, period." I guess my kindness kind of dissipated at that point. But anyway, I like did this video and I put this up, and then I was like, I took it down like a minute later. And I'm like, if he defrauded people, if he did all this bad shit,
Yeah.
that's awful for him. But a man still died and he still had a family. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's like, I just felt gross all day that I made a video, but I did take it down. I don't know. Can you just make me feel better? You're not a therapist, but I'm waiting for you to say something.
No,
here.
I mean, it's tough in this world when you're covering these things, because it's some of it I try, and I know it's difficult, to not view it all as entertainment sometimes. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about real people's lives, and
Yes.
it is hard to not. Karen Reed's a perfect example. Like, you can get all jazzed up and people are all fighting, and there's still a dead guy at the end of the day. There's still this horrible, who sounds, by the way, John O'Keefe sounds like he was a great guy, the way he took in his family's kids and everything else. And it's really hard to kind of strike that balance with a lot of these things that you want to be covering stuff and finding stuff that's intriguing and exciting and getting people engaged and getting people jazzed up. And then at the same time, it should not entirely fall into that world of entertainment. So I totally get where you're coming from, and you should not feel bad at all. I hope that makes you feel better.
Thank you for saying that. It makes me feel a little bit better, like just a little bit. And you're right. And I'm sorry, I'm putting this article in the chat from the New York Post about his death. And one of my girlfriends, she did not have a great experience with him. And she was like, "Keep it up, keep the video up, like blah, 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 all this stuff." And I just, like I said, I felt guilty. I was like, no, I don't care what he did. I jumped on this opportunity to break news, basically breaking news. And then I had that moral, like, I don't need to do this. Like, I don't need to do this at all. And, I had that experience last summer. If you Google this is super random, but Madonna, when she went to the hospital and was like rushed to the emergency room, and she canceled all these concerts and tours, whatever, she wasn't seen anywhere. She's my neighbor. She lives a block from me. I effing saw her. Okay. And my husband was at this angle, and I'm like, get a picture. Took a picture of her. I made a TikTok, and I was like, she looks amazing. She's doing well, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, the next thing you know, I'm blowing up everywhere, and I'm getting offered money for these pictures. And I didn't take it because I felt like it was bad karma. And Madonna put out a statement like literally that day, because I kind of forced her to, by saying, "Look, she's here and she looks great." I was nice about it, but still, it's just, I hope that one day, like, I will have good karma for maybe not exploiting. But anyway.
It'll come around. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I really hope you come back, because this has been so
fun.
Absolutely.
No, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for having me.
I know. I hope I didn't talk too much. Sorry, Chad. I'm like, I can't talk. I'm sick. Somehow it comes out.
You fought through it.
I really had no problem fighting through it. So guys, follow Josh at CR Confidential. And yes, we love Josh. Josh is amazing. I hope he returns. Everybody follow him on all platforms. And yeah, Josh, I'll be hitting you up again soon. Okay.
Love it. Thank you again.
Okay.
Good to
Thank
see you all.
Thank you so much. Oh, wait. Someone said, what's the next trial that you're streaming? Oh, Dizzy said that.
Oh, great question. You know what? Let me know what you guys want to see. I know that Tellez trial is getting a lot of traction. Lorenz, this is that horrible case of the woman who shot her neighbor through the door. A lot of good stuff coming up. But, we try to cover everything on Fridays too. Check it out on Friday. We have an episode that comes out every Friday where we just try to jump into everything that happened that week.
Oh, that's a good idea. Like a little,
Yeah,
wrap up or
little
something.
weekly wrap up. Yeah.
Love it. Well, guys, send Josh the trials that you want him to stream and cover. So, all right. Thanks for joining Pop Crime TV, guys.